All right, folks, we are good to go. Welcome on back here. Brand new week live inside the Cyber Group Trading Room and, of course, on all of our social streams here at Facebook Live, LinkedIn, Twitter, YouTube, etc. Of course, you could tell by the ugly mug. I actually look pretty bad here this morning. This is not Fausto. Fausto is, in fact, getting ready for our annual on-site event lined up this week. I'm actually flying out myself later on today, but getting the hot tag from him to do the morning meeting. So great to see all of us back alike here, and especially those inside our live trading room. Leda, John, Egan, Brian, Michael, Grant, and all of us just joining us there. Nice little pop on this RNAS stock. Just kind of came out of nowhere a moment ago prior to this meeting beginning. For a Monday, you normally shouldn't expect a whole lot out there. We still kind of coming off the Fed meeting and the PPI report, CPI, and perhaps we can get some better action heading into the end of this month as we're finishing up here in September, or heading into the beginning of October as we're starting. So, with that in mind, RNAS, hey, making a nice pop right now. It's up nearly 68% right now. Let's just take a look to see what Bookmap has to offer. Level 4. So it looks kind of choppy here, at least as far as like the real orders that are out there. There's about like 12,000 shares, 13,000 shares sitting out there right now at 119. An order's been out there for a little while, so I guess we'll call that big resistance. But really, if it could break that, I don't see much out, above that price that looks pretty significant. So let's just see what happens off this 119, 120. As of right now, it seems as if there's a small little order out here on the bid. Actually not that small, about 23,000 shares right now you could see. But this is where I say like the rest of the orders aren't really too consistent. Nothing really out there for a long period of time or anything like that much larger compared to what we've been seeing here thus far. So 20,000 shares on the bid. Looks like it just may have hit 119 right now. 118 just went up right up to 118 and pulled back a couple pennies here. So let's just be careful around resistance, especially heading into the market open. One of our rules that we always mention, a little free game for us on social media, but from class this past week, normally a pre-market trade, you don't really want to hold into the market open, especially something that's already pumped up this much already. Could it keep pumping up for the next few minutes? Yes. But around like 9:10, 9:15 Eastern, like myself, that's where I'm running for the hills. I'm getting out of that trade because not only do I want to give that stock a chance to pull back and breathe and relax, like I always say, like myself, like I want to do during this meeting, I want to take a step back and breathe and relax myself. So with that in mind, this can keep pushing up a little bit more. Looks like a new order just popped up actually at 140, about 17, 18,000 shares sitting there. So that could be our next target in mind. But, TikTok here, move on here pretty quick. So RNAS will put on our watch list, even if this does pull back after the open or right before the open. Perhaps this could build new support and then from there make another run. We had another pop here right before the open. Stock ended up crashing into resistance, and now you can see it ended up pulling right back at least a little bit here for the meantime. So the Jobby trade stock ended up making a little pop. Actually, at 8 o'clock, it looks like it began to pop. We didn't focus on it until it really just broke new highs from there. It was up like 3.5%, 4% at the time. Said, okay, well, let's just give it a shot. It was a very slow pre-market up until that point, really. So that is where, hey, you do want to start and stick with our watch list that we post out. Prior to 8 a.m., there's a reason those stocks are on the list, and those stocks are as active as they are prior to 8 a.m. Well, they're not all going to work out, but hey, at like 8:15, 8:20 in the morning, or in this case, even a little after, you do want to start to aggressively, scan more and more, because if there's nothing really that's working out from 8 o'clock, okay, let's see what happens at 8:15, or otherwise, let's see what happens at 8:30. And here, the Jobby trade made a nice breakout to make a new high of the day and ran out pretty well for what it's worth. So this one had resistance at like 658, 659. We'd called this out in our chat board just earlier, about 24,000 shares on the ask. So it popped above it, mind you, but pulled right back down, ended up shaking lower highs there and dropped off about 15, 20 cents lower. So yeah, going into the open, similar to the RNAS trade, we're just going to put this on our watch list. It's still very active and tradable for the morning. This stock Jobby, we actually are pretty familiar with. So actually, I think it was even our last on-site class back last year, but we ended up trading the Jobby. It was on a great spread, great order book. You could even see back in July of this, past summer, we ended up doing pretty well on it. Big gap up after a point and pop. The stock even right now is on, spread 1 cent, 2 cent spread. It does have thin size out here right now, but that's pre-market. It should fill in a lot more once the opening bell hits today. At about 25, 30 minutes from right now, this will fill in a lot more. You'll see new iceberg levels out there too. So we are pretty experienced and familiar trading this one stock, actually, Joby. I'd say the same with Arnaz. Maybe on once or twice we've traded that stock in the past, but this one actually we have good experience with. Like I said, even dating back to last year's on-site, our Trader Summit. Once again, we'll be doing that this week. So nice little coincidence there, might I say. So Arnaz, Joby, definitely good to go for the morning. Now the BPTS, my dyslexia tripping me up there. BPTS, there we go. Well, you can see now it's dumping right back down. And this stock in the past, well, yeah, we've traded it in the past, but much like Joby has in the past and Arnaz, I'm sure, it's a pop and drop. So you do want to be very careful holding on any longer than you need to be. I'm sure this stock has had a reverse stock split probably over the last couple months. Give me actually a quick second here, if you don't mind. I'm going to take a quick look right now. BPTS reverse split, because I know for a fact we've traded this actually somewhat recently, and it was pretty cheap like it is right now. So that's where I'm kind of thinking, like, I feel like there's been a reverse split that's taken place, at least at some point in time. So it looks like maybe back from July of last year. Yeah, it looks like they end up falling after a reverse stock split from July of last year. So maybe that was the last time then, perhaps. But either way, this thing fell all the way down at 88 cents. I don't think anyone's expecting the stock to squeeze up unless if they had like insider news, right? So this is a day trade. This is not a swing trade. Don't look to try and buy the bottom, sell the top. It's impossible. With that, if this could build support, then much like the others, perhaps it can make a nice new trade later on. But this one looking a little weaker heading into the open compared to the other two. So focus on more of the recent trend here to work with going into the open. Had a nice pop after 8 o'clock, but then topped off and broke under, potential support level and then tanked. So going into the open here, it hasn't been looking as good. Now, I will say, not looking as good. Perhaps you could say the same with the whole stock market. SPY just breaking new lows right now as I'm talking. And the reason I bring this up is, well, hey, that kind of segues us to a stock. I just saw my scanner here on Benzinga. I just wanted to jump to it here. Would have found it anyway on the gainer side. But the ETFs, UVXY and SQQQ, this one's up not nearly as much as the UVXY is percentage-wise. But, both of them I'll put back on our main list. If you have Bookmap, if you have level 4, then they're going to be a little bit easier to trade if you know how to follow the other, tools from the heat map or from Bookmap. Not just the heat map part of it, but the dots, the CVP column. Here, I'll show really quickly just for reference. My computer reboot on me on Saturday. I intended on keeping all my stuff open from Friday, including this UVXY. So I didn't have the chance to do that, but yeah, you can see where the heat map gets like pretty, it's tough to read. It's tough to get a good grip unless if there's something that shows up that's fairly distinct, like this order here at 1623. Well, over time, that actually just became support for a slingshot. And then right now it's on the way up towards, I guess, a small level at like 1667 or so. Hey, if our best entries are from big levels, and I'm calling this a small level, folks, if you're Grant or Egan or Ray, that I'm not as emphatic about using this as an entry level just yet, but that's the next little price to focus on. I would assume 17 as a whole number, if anything. You can give a little leeway as, considering a potentially big level. If I want to get crazy with dojis too, I reckon maybe 1708 doji back from July, but that's like really out of the box thinking right there. So we'll see what happens, at least heading into the open. I do think over time this week that we do see a strong bounce. You'd figure for as much as the market dropped off over this month in September. But, a lot of us have rightfully said September is the worst performing month out of the S&P historically. So here we are, September 25th. By the end of this week, it'll be September 29th. Next Monday will be October 2nd. You're not going to necessarily get a bounce like on the very beginning of the month. It might come sooner than later. It might come later than sooner. My guess is that it is sooner than later. So I think perhaps mid to end of this week, we can get a really strong bounce across the S&P. Hold me to that. We'll find out, All right. So with that, UVXY, SQQQ. We're not going to add all of them. We got this other one here, UVIX. We got Yang, Chinese ETF. Actually, China market's down big today. The news out with that, at least, is the big real estate developer Evergrande. They were down like 25%, like on the China market. So something with their debt reconstructuring plan that they had, they might be kind of going back on their word, or they might be going back on their agreement, perhaps. There is a lot more to it, so I don't want to talk out of pocket, but basically we'll just say that's it. And it led to a big drop, not just on that major real estate stock, Evergrande, but the whole market. So this morning in pre-market, I ended up seeing Lee down big, Chinese EV company, NIO down big, Chinese EV company. So we'll take a look at those on the loser side in just a moment. We're really at 5% right now, so I don't really see much use for any other trades out here on the gainers side. This ARDX was garbage early. All right, so let's see if there's anything looking good on the way down. Perhaps you can get a good bounce later on today. We'll find out, even if that true bounce isn't until, let's just shoot from the hip, say Wednesday, Thursday. We might still get that reversal time intraday bounce, 10:30 or so, 10:15, 10:30. So, a couple stocks I mentioned in the chat board earlier today. Actually, not a couple. There's actually just one stock I mentioned in the chat board earlier today. We'll get to that as we wrap up. MLGO, though, let's actually go back on this from Friday. What a disaster, right? I mean, not a disaster for us inside the live trading room. I didn't have the chance to trade this on the way up. I was just following, I think at the time, like Apple. I think there was another trade. What the hell am I thinking? AMD, which is the stock that we're going to go into just in a bit. But otherwise, for MLGO, it ran up really nicely after the open. Then it re-broke, and that's where I'd missed it. The re-break and run from 7 ran up all the way up towards 10, historical level that we had called out earlier in the chat board. Well, what goes up does come back down. We do say that. Big trees fall hard. We do say that. It was funny because in class, Bill was asking me at the very end in the phase 2 course, like, hey, would you short this stock? Before I even turned over to it, I thought, like, it's like not going to be easy to borrow. It's like some pop and drop. Well, it was some pop and drop. And yeah, it actually was easy to borrow. It was shortable. It was crazy. So, nice drop off. But even if you're not getting it from the peak there, which again, we're not trying to do, no one really is doing that. Like real money we're talking. So it ended up making lower highs. And then from there, that's actually the opportunity that could have been really tradable, as it ended up making the lower high from 750, the re-break under 7. It freaking tanked, came all the way back down. It was like a complete Christmas tree pattern, right? Up and down. Now with that though, look at where it is this morning. So it's down 29-30% once again this morning. I guess it still is easy to borrow from me on TradeStation. I don't know if it's easy to borrow for you on your platform, if you're on TAS or IB, Fidelity, whatever it may be, all great brokerages. It's just to say, at least this stock is still tradable. I wouldn't really be looking for that move on the way up. If you get it, then I'm going to be more reluctant and more cautious to look for that move on the way up as I would a short on the way back down for another drop. I know it actually did fill the gap and then some. So it pulled all the way back towards the high 437 back from Thursday's trading. And then even well below that, obviously closed from Thursday at 396. Here it is now, 335. So there could be a case to see it try and squeak up a tiny amount, but I would be looking more for a move on the way down over time and look for that short. So we put this back on our list, MLGO. Hopefully it does have a good order book at the open here. All right, so otherwise, bunch of other stuff hard to borrow, not down as much percentage-wise. So here's Lee, down 6+%, gap down this morning, dropped off a little bit. That could be on our watch list. I wouldn't mind throwing that on our watch list at this point. Don't have really a maxed out watch list just yet. So, wouldn't mind Lee. Wouldn't mind NIO. Obviously, I love NIO, but the cheaper it actually gets, the slower it becomes. We brought that up last week. I think it was in our Traders Talk workshop. So the NIO trade I will put on our watch list. Lee, I'm going to put on our list here too. The XPEV, I think, is like the healthiest out of all those three in terms of just their finances. At least the reports I see on Benzinga, they're basically saying that they're not affected by anything that Elon Musk is doing within the EV industry, with how big Tesla is, obviously. This is not down nearly as much percentage-wise. It goes to show. It's hard to borrow also. So if it ends up making a big drop and you could short it, then give it a good go, because it's going to have good order book and all of that. I just feel like Lee and NIO are going to be more shortable. They're down more percentage-wise. Another one here, JD, infamous Stock Insider Live trading room back from 2014, 2015. Let's see what else we got here, though. Not much else looking like it's trading some big volume there, like NEO opens too cheap. Not going to be a great short. All right, so I'll tell you, I think that's pretty much it from my side. I'm going to take a look at Benzinga Pro, see what they have there. When they're giving me stocks like this, you know that we're at the bottom of the barrel. So PXY or PYXS, dyslexia once again there. GDHG, I got that one right, but I don't think that one's looking as good. Yeah. All right. So, folks, I think that we're going to wrap up for right now. So I think that we're all set. We got a decent list. I didn't have any I even put on the side list I'd said I'd come back to. Let me just jump right ahead to our social streams here, Facebook Live, etc. Hey, we got the captain here, El Capitan, El Jefe here joining us on YouTube. Hey, not to Fausto. Fausto's normally here in the seat, but for all of us otherwise on YouTube and social media, scan that QR code on the top left of the stream right there. Get you access to our live trading room. In fact, if you want to do so and call our office, talk to one of our education advisors. They'll even reset the trial to begin on a specific date. If today doesn't suit you, if you want to begin tomorrow or later on throughout this week, give a call to our office. Scan that QR code first, though. Get you access to our live trading room. Now, great to see Fausto joining us. I'll be seeing Fausto in person later on this week. If not tomorrow, Fausto, perhaps on Wednesday once we begin our on-site course, our CTU annual on-site course. Sometimes we even like to do it 2 times a year, but I'll say Fausto, our annual on-site course. Keep in mind, folks, you can still join the webcast. Still have time to join the webcast for all of our gold, platinum, and diamond students here at CTU. A couple of big live presentations on swing trading and options. We have Bruce Pringle from Bookmap joining us as always. He is an incredible instructor. So he's going to be in person with us. You have the chance to watch on webcast as well. Chuck saying here in the chat board, Evergrande looks going bankrupt. Some advisors saying, from the few amount of headlines I've read, Chuck, wouldn't shock me, right? Obviously, they're down 25% this morning. They had the suspected collapse or collapse even, you could say, from last year it was or the year before. So, yeah, not looking too pretty for them. And they weigh the market down quite a bit, it seems. The China markets, at least. All right, so I think that's going to wrap it up, folks. So again, hey, we'll be back live on YouTube later on today at 2:30 Eastern time later on this afternoon. I will be in the air myself, or prepping to be in the air. My colleague Rich will be tagging it for myself. And then, hey, back tomorrow morning, Fausto should be back tomorrow morning for this morning meeting. But for Michael, Leda, Grant, Chuck, and Egan, John, Leda, and all of us there joining us live, going to refill up on water. Got my nice water cup here. Going to refill up. We'll be good to go in just about 10, 11 minutes here, folks. Talk to you all soon. Take care.